This is going to be our discussion on esports. Many of you may not even know what esports is, but I promise you what you're about to hear is going to be jaw-dropping in terms of how big this is and what it could possibly do for Seminole County and the Central Florida region. So let's get started. I'd like to welcome to the stage our moderator for today in this morning's program. That's Danny Trossett, the Director of Sports Tourism for Seminole County, to the podium. Come on up, Danny.
All right, thank you, Jason. And it is a pleasure to be here with everyone this morning. We have a very, very exciting discussion about esports. And before we call the panel up here, I just want to take a poll. How many of you played video games as a kid? Raise your hand. All right. Now the honest question. How many of you still play video games? All right. How many of you have kids that play video games? Okay, so this is a very relevant topic here for the group. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome the panel up, and I'm just going to call everyone's name. Ryan DeVos, Director of Magic Gaming. Johnny Williams, CEO, Player Epic. Jason Siegel, the President and CEO of the Greater Orlando Sports Commission. And Sari, Kitelyn, the Executive Director of Esports and Project Development for Full Sail University. Please help me in welcoming our panel to the stage. All right, well, guys, thank you so much again for being here. Let's start off. My guess is that a lot of people in the audience today may not fully understand what we are talking about when we talk about esports. So I'd like to start off by each of you giving your definition in 3 sentences or less of what esports is. So Jason, why don't you go ahead and start?
Sorry, go ahead. I will do it not nearly the justice that Sari will.
In the truest sense, esports is competitive video gaming. It's similar to traditional athletics, but with video games in an online environment.
Okay.
Yeah, perfect. I typically say it's just the professional play of games and competing at the highest level. Esports is kind of catch-all title, so you have multiple titles within that, different games. So similar to sports, baseball, basketball, all of that. Esports is very similar with different titles and people competing in different games.
I'm trying to figure out how to reword that. It's pretty much what they said, but in my opinion, it's a way of taking traditional sports, the environment, and putting it on the digital platform for competition and entertainment.
I'll take a different angle. I think that the most interesting and when it comes to economic impact and how we view and take a look at our business, a portfolio of business that we look to bring into this community, you're looking at probably in excess of $1 billion worth of business that's happening globally right now. And it really seems like and feels like youth travel sports 25 years ago, where you have this emerging opportunity, certainly for our community, just from the number of hands that were raised. And truly, I think within the next, a shorter period of time, even from the trajectory that youth sports was on, we could be looking at potentially, probably within the next 15 years, anywhere from an $18 to $20 billion piece of business, economically speaking. So I think to give a little bit of context as well.
Wow, that's incredible. In esports, it really is the fastest growing sports business. I mean, it's valued to be a $1.6 billion industry by 2024. There was a recent report that stated that viewership of esports worldwide is growing by 20% every year. And it's anticipated that nearly 495 million people will tune in at some point in 2021 to watch an esports event. Why do you believe there's been this tremendous growth? And the second part of that question is, how has COVID impacted esports? And that's for anyone, whoever would like to take it.
I'll go.
Okay.
So COVID, to start, really had an impact by everybody being at home and on their electronics, and esports offers people an opportunity to compete and connect with people on a global scale. So
You know,
Did that answer the question?
Yes, it did.
and I just add to that too. You know, from a traditional sports standpoint, we see engagement around what people are actually playing. So basketball, you know, certainly having a certain resurgence. I'm not, you know, not biased at all. But you know, with the younger generation really playing games, engaging around different titles, whether it's Fortnite, which I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with your kids playing, or other games like League of Legends. You know, they're playing these games and therefore they want to watch the best compete at what they do. And so there's just a lot more engagement around different esports leagues and titles, and they kind of take it from there. So it's growing quickly. And in the pandemic, Johnny said it, you know, it had obviously horrible for many small businesses, but really good for the esports community in that there weren't traditional sports on. So people were kind of forced to get their competitive juices flowing from other situations, and esports kind of filled that gap, and we had the ability to compete remotely, keep players safe, and still put on a great show.
Yeah, I'll add to that too. I think a lot of the contribution to esports growth over the last few years is simple accessibility. In contrast to maybe some traditional sports, the path to pro, the amateur versus pro scene can really be blurred. So you have a direct connection either through watching or through playing to the professional players, the people that you've really been admiring or looking up to. And in regards to content creation or things that you would watch online, similar to watching traditional sports. I am a ginormous Bucks fan. I have never thrown a football a day in my life, and you're going to find the same thing with esports. There are a ton of people out there that are watching it every single day, finding their favorite players, finding their favorite content creators that might not necessarily be players themselves. And so the fact that it have that accessibility component to folks that have been playing video games their whole lives, and it has the added contribution of those that are just simply interested in watching online what other folks are doing, I think really contributes vastly to the growth. And everything these guys said in regards to COVID, it has not slowed down even for a second, which is nuts.
No, and I think the nice part as a destination, to take a little bit of a different look at it, is there's such a pent-up demand for interaction. I think, you know, while socially there's that obvious connection that can be made digitally, virtually, but there's a tremendous demand now and a pent-up demand for those folks to come together, whether it be through festivals or competitions or tournament play. And I think what we're going to see is a overcorrection within the, we were talking about the event space, where, you know, we'll find a lot of opportunities. Full Sail is doing an incredible job. And I think you'll see that anytime that you have these major marquee events that come, whether it's a FIFA World Cup or an NBA All-Star game or MLS All-Star game, there is an esport component attached to that opportunity, because it gives the brand, it gives the leagues a way to diversify and get themselves into a space that maybe they weren't as familiar with 10, 15 years ago. But they're certainly capitalizing by leveraging the popularity of, it was interesting, I always share this story. When 2K first came out in the early 2000s, I remember being in there was a case study, and they brought a few of us in. And one of the kids that they had asked, there was an 8 or 9-year-old who was playing, and they said something about he was a big Lakers fan, and he said, which stunned the rest of us at the time, because live sports was everything. And they asked the young person, you know, how excited and how much they love playing the video game, and he said, well, why do I need to see Kobe when I can be Kobe? And it was like, holy cow, like that's a problem, you know, if you know, but the good news is that you had to have Kobe, you had to have LeBron, you had to have these superstars for the kids to emulate and want to, you know, play the game and choose to be those characters. But then in so many other spaces, Fortnite, many others, you see that the imaginations run wild. So I think it's really interesting to watch this pattern, this flight pattern, as this industry takes off.
Sari, you mentioned something about the road to becoming a professional gamer. And I think it's really interesting. It's not like your traditional sports, you know, Major League Baseball, you got single A, double A, triple A. And so talk a little bit about how does a kid playing video games, how is he seen? And then how is he then all of a sudden have an opportunity to participate in some of these big tournaments? I think it's fascinating, and I'll share this. A 16-year-old from Pennsylvania in 2019 played in the Fortnite World Cup Championship and won $3 million. $3 million. To put that in perspective, if you win the Masters golf tournament, you don't win $3 million. If you win the Wimbledon, you don't win $3 million. Okay, so it's just fascinating the prize money that these gamers are playing for. So Sari, just elaborate on that a little bit.
Sure. To put that into perspective even further, the tournament was open to 13 and up, and if it had been open for younger, he probably wouldn't have won. And that's, I think, what's beyond fascinating. So if your kids are, if it was open to 13 and up, and if it was open for younger, he probably wouldn't have won. So if your kids are playing video games, have them keep playing video games. But
Don't yell at them for playing video games.
in the grand scheme of things, I think it's similar to the, what we were talking about earlier. It's the accessibility, really. So there is a huge amateur scene for every title that you can possibly think of, and they run in various formats. So just like traditional sports have, there's tennis or golf that'll be single player. There's team sports that'll have teams of various sizes. It's the same thing with esports. So there are team esports and there are single player esports. And you can approach it in so many different ways. But in every aspect and in every title, there is an amateur scene that makes money. And the tournaments bring huge sponsors. They bring huge audiences. They bring just as many in-person players as they bring in-person viewers. And slowly and surely, you work your way up, similar to like a ladder system. As you continue to play these tournaments, you might start by winning $150 at a Buffalo Wild Wings down the street, and you might end by winning $30,000 at the convention center. You slowly build up your status. You slowly build up your gameplay rankings, and you over time and over practice and over constant streaming and getting feedback, you really work yourself up over time, and those prize pools are real. And that continues through middle school, through high school. We just put on a high school tournament last week, 2 weeks ago. 375 high school students competed in Rocket League and won a $15,000 scholarship. And so scholarships for high school students are real. Scholarships for middle school students are real. It's a official varsity sport in college. So we've got varsity athletes on our college that are playing. And it continues on through there. The thing to know is the audience is huge, especially because average age of retirement for esports is going to be around 26 or 27, which means that the audience starts a lot younger, which opens us up to a huge, I guess, eyeballs in an audience that you might not traditionally see, which has become super valuable for those that are participating.
That's great.
Jason, just in time for the NIL discussion with the NCAA. So,
Ryan, your company is obviously built around traditional sports. Why did the Magic and the NBA embrace esports so quickly? And if you could share a little bit about the Magic's NBA 2K League.
Yeah, absolutely. So, we at the Magic pride ourselves on being innovative and trying to be at the forefront of technology, and just looking at kind of the shift in sport on the whole. We saw esports as being a great opportunity. Younger demographic, getting engaged, like I said, competing and watching titles and games that they participate in. And so we wanted to use that and figure out a way to, how do we utilize esports as a pipeline to grow fandom for the Orlando Magic, for the NBA. And so the NBA 2K League is kind of where we landed. It's a joint venture between the NBA and Take-Two Interactive, which is the maker of NBA 2K. And we started in 2017. We had 17 teams to kick off, and have been growing ever since. We're at 24 teams now competing. We're days away from starting the next season, which is exciting. We play through the summer, so the idea that basketball's always on. We're NBA 2K League is filling the gap of the NBA alongside the WNBA, which is another fantastic growth opportunity for the league as a whole. But yeah, I mean, we saw it as a great opportunity to touch that younger demographic and hopefully convert some Magic fans.
That's great. Thank you, Ryan. Revenues from esports are expected to climb more than $1.6 billion by 2024, according to Business Insider. Are there unique ways of monetizing esports that are not following the traditional revenue sources of other sports?
I'll take this one. Right now, currently with the rise of the NFT items, it helps the content creators and the gamers monetize their content through NFTs. So that's a new way of making money through this.
Johnny, can you share a little bit more about that? Because we're
Yeah,
starting to read about
so,
it.
Yeah,
from
NFT is a non-fungible token. I'm not really sure the best way to explain it in simple terms, but it's a way that you can create your I can't really answer this question right now.
Here,
I'll come
try.
I'll come back to it later. I'm not really versed on the technical side of how NFTs work exactly. I just know it's a form of monetizing your digital content.
I can give it a quick try. And again, I am also not an expert in NFT or blockchain technology. But basically, like Johnny said, NFT is a non-fungible token, which is built on blockchain technology. So basically, blockchain confirms through a series of ledgers all over the world, essentially, who owns a piece of whatever it is, whether it's a clip or a actual physical piece of art. So for example, an NFT by an artist named, I think it's Beeple, is that right? Just sold for $60 million. And it's literally a piece of art that lives solely in the digital world, but through blockchain, it's confirmed as this is the only actual piece. So, look at any major piece of art in a gallery, and you can take pictures of it, but you can't actually replicate the only physical piece of it. And so an NFT is kind of a way of having that physical piece of art or physical clip and confirming through blockchain that you are the sole owner of that piece.
And maybe, can you guys just share with us, what are the primary sources of revenue for esports? And what corporations, what companies are heavily backing esports? I imagine it's heavily sponsorship driven. So if you can just give the audience just a sense of what are those companies out there that are really investing heavily in esports?
I'll say the thing that I do think makes sponsorship opportunities so unique in the world of esports and revenue generation as a whole is it's beyond the world of ticket sales, which is an interesting thing to kind of get your head around. But the thing to keep in mind is there are local streamers in Orlando that you might not have ever heard of that will have on average 50 to 100,000 people watching them every single day. And so it's access to a community from a sponsorship perspective, from a brand impression perspective that does not require a huge sellout stadium necessarily in order to continuously bring eyeballs. So a connection to a unified brand or a unique content creator brings a constant revenue. And then when the large scale events happen, which they do happen and they are very large, it's an attachment to an individual's brand or an attachment to an individual's persona and an attachment to that audience. And so it's an access of kind of hitching your wagon to a place that you want to be, and then you ride it through the daily exposure through an audience, and then you ride it through the large scale exposure from when these large tournaments or these large events do happen. I do think that the world of esports has multiple levels and multiple types of things. So there are franchise teams, obviously, like Ryan was talking to. There are also professional teams that will have their own sponsors, and there are individual players that will have just as many followers as some of these large teams do. So it's a lot less oversight, governing body, parent company, and a lot more, hey, you have 7 million followers on Twitch. Is there something we can do together? Is there something we can figure out? And the biggest thing I think is, for non-endemic brands to not be afraid of the world of esports, I find those to be the most valuable partners. The endemic brands they're fighting against each other, and it's going great and everything's doing well, and there's plenty of opportunity to go around, but it's the non-endemic brands that I think see esports and maybe get a little bit turned off without really totally understanding it. And it's a constant access to an audience rather than a single moment access to an audience, which I think is the biggest difference.
And I'd just add to that too, from a revenue perspective, Sari mentioned partnerships. So, on the Magic side, Magic Gaming side, we see about 90% of our revenue is coming from partnership dollars. So bringing on sponsors from, some of them are national, some of them are more local in scope and scale. And that's really what's powering the esports space right now is partnership dollars. And then you have not naming rights, like streaming rights and just viewership opportunities, whether it's Twitch or YouTube gaming, anything like that is kind of probably the next tier. And Sari mentioned, endemic and non-endemic. For all of you to know, non-endemic is your more traditional brands who don't necessarily play in the esports space naturally. So when you think endemic, think PlayStation, Microsoft, Xbox, PC manufacturers, mouse and keyboard manufacturers, things like that that are actually needed to physically play the games and are kind of known for that. Non-endemic is your BMWs, your Audis, Coca-Cola, Pepsi, all those different kind of brands. So anyways.
That's great. Thank you. The 2019 League of Legends tournament in Europe had more than 100 million unique viewers, more than the Super Bowl, just to put it in perspective. It also packed arenas across the continent. What are we doing as a community here in Central Florida to attract these type of esports events to our market? Jason, you want to take that?
Yeah, I think that to give Full Sail so much credit, and certainly what the Magic and City Soccer and so many of the stakeholders in our community had already been doing, I think from an education standpoint, certainly UCF, Valencia, but Full Sail is one of the leaders in the country. Full Sail came to us and said, look, we have all these stakeholders in the community that are doing a lot of great work in this space. How do we bring a task force together to start to elevate and create a platform where we speak specifically to these opportunities as a community? And naturally, we're charged with bringing high-profile events here into the region, and it made all the sense in the world. So, within a short period of time from that lunch over at Hawkers about 4 years ago, we're now at about 35 local stakeholders that are getting together on a regular basis. Of course, EA Sports playing such a big role in our community, but the venues together with education, together with titles and folks that are invested heavily in the space, coming together to say, hey, listen, as a community, Greater Orlando, 4 or 5 counties wide, and the city of Orlando, if we come together and create a platform and we're solidified, we're working in collaboration to make sure that event organizers, to make sure that people that are, festivals in Poland that are getting millions of people to come to these festivals. And we're seeing all of this expansion, China and across the globe, where there might be these tremendous opportunities for us. If we get our act together and we come together as a community, that'll be the first step, because then we're all talking about the same thing. And if we're saying, hey, look, we're going to collaborate and educate, was really interesting. Mayor Demings, in his transition in 2018, with his new administration coming on in Orange County, brought us in and said, look, on the technology and innovation space, Jason, can we talk a little bit to the group and educate them on what the opportunities are here, and are we taking full advantage of it? What are the barriers to entry? It's very expensive to rent the convention center. It's, for Smart City to go 10 up and 10 down and pay for the amount of Wi-Fi, the amount of bandwidth that you need to host these tournaments. And so that education we didn't want folks rolling their eyes. We didn't want them, when these opportunities presented themselves, we didn't want to go to them after the fact and say, holy cow, we have this great opportunity to bring Overwatch, tournament in, or a Call of Duty tournament in, and then have our elected officials or folks that were helping us with incentives be able to understand, educate them. And interestingly enough, after we went through that transition period with the mayor, I think if you look on his final report, page 18, 19, there's paragraphs on esports, which is terrific, because really, validating and making sure that everybody, and when we have those conversations at the highest levels, there's no eye rolling, oh, that's just for kids playing video games. They understand what the upside is. They understand that there can be a return on investment, and maybe it's a little bit slower to come. Maybe in certain cases where for every dollar we spend, we'll get $100 back for an event like that. maybe to get started, we should only expect $20 or $30 back per dollar. But by the way, the end game, the long game, there's some great opportunity, and I think that our community is very much together on this subject, and we've got a group, and to that, we've heard from other cities that they've emulated sort of this task force model to get all sectors of the community together to make sure that we're prepared to compete for these opportunities.
That's fantastic. Thank you, Jason. Sari, Full Sail has been a true leader in this field, working with the Sports Commission, not only offering training, but becoming an esports destination. Talk a little bit about what Full Sail has done and why this is so important.
Sure. So we started formalizing our esports efforts back in 2016. And honestly, it's because the students sort of forced us there. It had really started taking over on our campus, and we had found them playing with each other and joining these small circuits. And it's in the sense of, we've had gaming programs at our university for now going on 30 years. So we've always had a strong gaming community, and we just really wanted to be supportive of them. And in starting that exploration, you realize, oh, there's a lot to unpack here. And over the last now 5-6 years that I've been working on these efforts, you start to uncover things like we've built the varsity program, nationally all together and here on our university. And you just kind of start realizing how many members of our community within Central Florida are within this gaming space. And there's the profitability and the benefits that there are in that space. So when we started exploring it, after getting everything set up for our students and for our varsity program, we built this, multi-pillar approach. We have about 7 pillars that we really focus on. That's a well-rounded and 360 approach to how we pursue esports and esports opportunities. Yes, it is the players, and we evaluate the players, but it's so much more than that. There's postgraduate success as a prime focus for us at Full Sail, because obviously this is what we're training, but the business and the career opportunities for graduates in this space, this is the way the entertainment industry has evolved. It's evolved through esports. So it's really not a brand new industry as you might necessarily think, as much as I like to look at it as an evolution of the entertainment industry, and a big one. And so this is what live events are. The esports events that you'll see, there's one that we were talking about earlier, DreamHack. They see about 250,000 attendees. They do this event 12 times a year. They see 250,000 attendees at each of their 12 events a year. And these events are video games, art, music, concerts, live concerts. The last one we went to, I think right before the COVID world, or one of the last ones, was out in Dallas, and Trivium was a headliner based here in Central Florida. And it's a really big deal of knowing there's individual arts, there's professional artists, there's gaming, there's watching gaming, there's playing gaming, there's watching concerts, there's playing concerts, there's everything in between. It's really unifying all aspects of the entertainment industry together. So that's a really big focus and things to look on. For us, the biggest thing that we want to do is stay on the forefront. So like Jason was saying about technology, it is incredibly important. Technology and production and being able to be top of mind in that regards is what makes you attractable to these global esports organizations. So esports has no bias in regards to region. So there's nothing that would make LA or New York any more valuable than us. Actually, quite the contrary. We tend to be a little bit more valuable because of the investment from Central Florida and because of the investment that we have in technology. It's actually pretty difficult in New York to find spaces that are close enough that can have that level of infrastructure because of the way that the city is designed. And so the more that we can continue to put out there about what it is that we offer, the more that we embrace our community, and the big focus that we have here. We have the top Super Smash Brothers player in the world lives in Orlando. We've had his events on our campus. We've done 6 months of them, and each one will bring 700 people in, and we just have to cap it because we're out of space. And I think those things are all going to really start coming back. And so it's the fact of everything that Orlando has, especially and primarily above everything else, the investment from the city and the investment from the community in making this a focus really puts us at the top of the list. There's no reason we should never be more than or lower than a top 3 destination for anything esports wise. We are primed for it. We are equipped for it. And the investment and everything really continues to bring that to surface.
That's great. Thank you so much, Sari. We're almost to the end of time. I know that flew by quickly, but if each of you can leave with one thing you think the audience should know about esports before they leave the room today. I'll start with Johnny.
It's fun.
There you go. One word says it all. I love it.
I like it. I would just say, esports is a real thing. It's here to stay. So I would start, use this as a jumping off point and go and digest it a little bit more, work to understand it, because it's truly not going anywhere. And it's, we at the Magic see it as the future of sport in many ways. So I hope you all start to see that as well.
I'll say in a time where we're really focused on diversity, equity, and inclusion, esports can be the most inclusive place to be. And you'll see it everywhere that you look. You'll see it in gender differentiation, race differentiation, and continued support, which is really eye-opening and warming. And if you're looking to find out more about esports or watch esports, you should subscribe to our Twitch channel. It's twitch.tv/Full Sail Armada. And it's awesome. And you'll see students playing, you'll see content creators, you'll see teams playing against each other. You can get a kind of well-rounded approach. We feature high schools on our channel. We feature our students who are trying to get started as individual streamers and kind of get themselves up and going. And you'll see our varsity teams play. So we've got a lot of good stuff going on there.
Yeah, Sari really nailed it. That's to me, that's the area of interest with so much conversation around inclusion, and I think as a compassionate and collaborative community, we can absolutely embrace. In addition to that, I'd say if you're in the technology and innovation space, this is an opportunity to continue to diversify within what you're doing day to day and get involved in the community that we've started to grow. If you are interested in being part of our task force and the group that we have that's out there promoting and selling our community, we'd love to hear from you. So appreciate Ryan, you doing this today. Well, to all of our guests, Johnny and Ryan and Sari, and of course to Danny. Ryan, I don't even know where that came from.
That's all right.
It might be the coffee. What is it?
I've been called
Jason,
worse.
what did you guys put? But
No,
But Danny, thanks for for moderating today and for all the great work that you do here in Seminole County.
appreciate it. All right. Let your kids play video games. Don't yell at them, all right? They could be the next $3 million gamer. How about a round of applause for our panel today? Thank you guys so much.
I need a script, Danny, if you could. There we go. Thank you all very much. If you just hang out here for just a second, we didn't get to any of the questions, the Q&A that the audience may have today, but I did promise you some eye-popping facts here. And I know that these folks, some of them will be able to stay after if you have some more questions. But, if you're like me, you started today looking like Captain Lou Albano in the Cyndi Lauper video, girls just want to have fun, wagging your finger at your kids. Why are you wasting all your time? And then you find out that they could actually make a lot more money than a lot of the folks you've heard about. So this is certainly a burgeoning industry that is not going away anytime soon. And the number of opportunities we have in Central Florida is just staggering. So thank you all for outlining that and making sure folks around here can help carry that message to the community. If you all are not a member yet of the Seminole County Chamber, please see Christy. And if you sign up this morning before you leave, we'll credit your ticket price. I have some door prize winners. Nathaniel, what's the door prize today? Oil change, tire rotation, and car wash. Are we ready for the winner? Anna Tanzia from the Camaraderie Foundation. I think we have a winner. There we go. I want to remind everybody that we have a business after hours coming up next Thursday, May 13th at the Sharing Center. You all are invited. And our second professional women's luncheon of the year is coming up on May 20th. You have your dates for everything that's going on your table. Our legislative update is coming May 27th. I hear we have the best looking delegation in the state. We hope to see you there so you can hear about the 2021 session. And don't forget to register for your favorite council events. Thank you to Top Golf, Next Horizon, J. Wayne Miller Company, Waste Pro, Allen Bird and Associates, Staples, and the Orlando Law Group for sponsoring this great event. Thank you to our panelists once again for coming, much appreciated. And if you'd be willing to stay, that'd be great. We also appreciate Lewis from 1AV for providing excellent AV for our virtual events today. And thank you to GS Cats Photos for always providing us with amazing photography. Thank you to the Lake Mary Event Center. And everyone have a great Seminole County day. Thank you all.